Hello and welcome to Women Winning Their Way. I'm your host, Clara Capano, and this is the time that we start talking with women who are creating and forging through creating that path to success and doing it all on their terms. And today I have a very special host, special because she is a longtime family friend and also one of my mentors that opened the door and helped me get my very first grown up job. So I am very excited to bring to the stage my dear friend, Marcia Reece. Marcia, welcome to the show.
Hi, Clara. So good to be here with you. I'm thrilled.
Well, when I started the show, back during COVID, I always knew I wanted to get you on, and our schedules just were not lining up, but now is the time. So, before we start diving into your journey, tell us a little bit about who you are.
Well, I am a lifelong product inventor. I am driven by finding easy, affordable, smart solutions to everyday problems. If I have the problem, I know that a bunch of other people have the problem. So I try to find a way to solve it.
I love that. Yes, you are a fixer, very solution oriented, but also making it happen in ways that are going to, bring value to the world. And that's something that's so fantastic. So, as we kick this off, because, we're talking about paving our path to success, when you were a little girl, when you were young and you thought into your future, what did you think success was going to look like for you when you were young?
Well, Clara, I grew up on a hog farm in southeast Iowa. And success to me was going to be getting off that hog farm because we worked really hard and I didn't like the smell of hog manure then, and I still don't now.
Mhm.
So for me, it was, I guess, getting enough independence that I could pave my way outside of the ag industry, which was all I knew. My whole family, my aunts, my uncles, all of them are big, wonderful farmers, but I knew it wasn't for me. So success was going to be finding a new path.
I love that. So now in finding a new path, one of the things that I notice is when we want to forge out and sort of create our own definition for ourselves, not everybody understands what we're trying to create. Did you ever find any, obstacles or any barriers from your family and your community when you said, I want to leave and do something different?
A little bit. My father was very old fashioned. He didn't think girls needed to go to school, to college. They just needed to get married and have a family. So I had a lot of pushback from him when I wanted to go to school. I paid for every dime of it myself. I worked 3 jobs in high school, 3 jobs in college so that I could afford to go. And he never did come to visit. He never to this day, and he's still alive at 95. He never has acknowledged what has happened in my world since leaving the farm. So I had that pushback. But being a businesswoman in the late 70s, early 80s, I had men actually say to me in meetings when I would be introduced to them, and this is a quote, as they looked up and down my 5'9" body, she can't look like that and have a brain too. So I had a lot of glass barriers to break through. I had people say, "Where's the man in the company?" They didn't want to deal with me. Back in those days, women were not a customary fixture
Mhm.
to industry. So I did have some of that pushback, but in a way, I learned a secret weapon.
Ooh, tell us.
Because I was a woman, they all thought I wouldn't follow through. So I would put on my little polite dingbat routine and say, "Oh, I really want to get my product into Walgreens. If How would I do that?" And I would just act stupid. And these men would tell me everything because they never thought I would follow through. They would never have told a man the things they told me. So I
So you
learned.
use that to your strength and to be like, if I'm going to be, here, let's use our tactics to
Yes.
outsmart them. Brilliant.
Yes. I don't know if
Brilliant.
that would work today because I think women are pretty savvy, and now that
They are.
men know we are to be reckoned with.
Exactly. Well, before we dive into, some of those other strategies that you used, I want to just share a little bit about your journey because whether our viewers know it or not, you're kind of famous for one of your inventions. You are the inventor of sidewalk chalk. And how many of us as kids or as moms, we have our kids and we're out there with our sidewalk chalk. So I would love to hear a little bit because, again, talk about being an inventor. How did you not only come up with this concept, but more importantly, what was the journey to get this created?
Well, back in the 70s, the only chalk that was available was that little thin blackboard chalk that was kind of the
Mhm.
size of your finger. It came from China. It was dusty, it was dirty, it broke, it stained, it was full of lead. And I wanted my kids to play with creative toys. I didn't want them to watch battery toys going around and around in a circle. So we did a lot of creative arts and crafts at our house. And my daughter only liked to wear frilly pink back then. And now she's such a mom of two boys, and she would just laugh to even think about that. But she was very fussy and frilly back in the day. And when she would get her pink clothing stained with this blackboard chalk, she would get very upset and cry. So in 1979, I decided I had to find a better way to make chalk. And I spent the summer in this antique place called a library researching how chalk was made because I didn't know either. And started in my kitchen just mixing and making batches and experimenting until I came up with this phenomenal formulation. It has never been duplicated to this day. It would last long, it was hard, it would not rub off on your clothing, and it would wash off with water. And so for your audience, I went back into the archives. Clara, I don't even know if you have seen this, but back then, we started selling our product at craft shows because I
Mhm.
didn't know how to sell retail product back then. And it would sell out every time. And finally, my son said, Mom, you're the only chalk. You got to sell this to Walmart because back in those days, Walmart said they only bought American products and they had 66 stores. That's how long ago this was. Walmart with 66 stores. So I started calling my buyer every morning exactly at 9 o'clock, not 8:57 and not 9:02, 9 o'clock. On the 46th morning, the buyer finally acknowledged that I wasn't going to stop. And I had a meeting with my buyer, and he gave me a 7 store test. And he bought one gross of my 4 pack and one gross of my 6 pack for each of his 7 stores with a 30-day guaranteed buyback. So I'm like, oh boy, we got to sell this
Mhm.
stuff. So
Mhm.
I made clown costumes for my kids. We called the local media in these small towns that had these Walmart stores, and we put on a sidewalk chalk contest in their parking lot because back then Walmart parking lots weren't so busy.
Right.
Well, the newspapers back then only put their color stories on the front and back pages. So we were on the front page of all of these 7 little newspapers, and our product blew off the shelves. 4 days into the 30 days, we delivered our first of 9 reorders. They restocked 9 times in that 30 days. So I want to show your audience and you, Clara,
Okay.
this is the product we sold to Walmart. And I want your listeners to realize not everything starts out as beautiful as a Apple iPhone. I mean,
Mhm.
it takes iterations, especially when I had no background in packaging or product, but I can tell you this product sold like crazy. Now, here's what it looked like. Oh gosh.
Okay. I got it.
It
Ah,
looked like colored dog poop on a shrink wrap. The only sophisticated thing we had was the UPC code, and
oh
Walmart
my
didn't
gosh.
even use UPC codes, but that's what we first sold. And then our sales were tremendous. And so I called the buyer when the 30 days was up, and I said, "This was so fun. How can we get a few more stores?" He said, "Marcia, I think you better come down to visit me." So I made my first trip to Bentonville, Arkansas, and he took it was and then I had the blessing of meeting Sam Walton. He became a mentor and a friend, and I miss him so much. I learned so
Right.
much at the foot of the master. But they took me into the planogram room and they showed me packaging and different ways we could package. And we had just figured out how to make molded shapes. And so we all decided the best thing to do would put it on be to put it on blister cards. And I had to buy a 6 station blister machine, which was, I think, 30 or $40,000, which was a big investment for me back then.
Mhm.
And then we went from colored dog poop to molded shapes on blister cards.
Ah.
So
Mhm.
that's kind of the evolution of what I learned from them. They gave me a 14 store test and then a 22 store test. And my last meeting, we sat in the room, the three of us, and they had a green and white striped, sprocketed computer printout because this was just at the beginning of computers. And they looked at me and they said, "We just don't understand this. You are our best selling item in our toy department." Well, they didn't know I had been killing myself doing these sidewalk parking
Mm.
lot content. I was driving the sales. And then they gave me all 66 stores. And then shortly
Amazing.
thereafter, we got I don't want to take all of our time talking about this, but kind of the culmination was 53 million of these for, and
Amazing.
talk about being at the right place at the right time, Clara. I had a friend in Boulder, Colorado, who owned a number of McDonald's. His name is Bob Charles. And he called me into his office and said, "I think you ought to look at doing a Happy Meal promotion." And I said, "Well, tell me how I would. What's involved?" And so we went into Oak Brook, Illinois together to McDonald's headquarters. And he gave me this fry package. This is a real McDonald's
Mhm.
French fry. And we put 3 pieces of chalk in it. This is so old. It's getting dingy looking, but it was sharp and crisp back then.
Mhm.
And we made our presentation and they were interested. But McDonald's buys their promotions out quarters and quarters ahead.
Right.
And the odds of me getting a McDonald's Happy Meal promotion were like probably winning that $1.7 billion lottery. At any rate, about 5 or 6 months later, I get a call from McDonald's. Fisher Price had a promotion that they were going to be making, and they had a fire in their factory in China and they couldn't fulfill. And he said, "Can you make this happen?" I said,
Mm.
"You bet we can." Now that's where, when you have the luck of the door opening, you've
Yeah.
got to be ready to walk through.
Yeah.
We were a
I wanna talk about that more because I think that's a big thing. It's, yes, you had the tenacity and you were there doing it, but, you mentioned that concept of right place, right time and
yes.
talking about luck. Talk a little bit more about that because, you can say right place, right time. You can say it was luck. At the same time, you did the work and you showed up.
Yes. Well, we've had a couple like that. When we were, I'll go back to chalk because that was when so much of this happened. I got a call from the head of Kmart, and his opening words were very foul. He said, "Why the F is Walmart getting all this publicity?" I said, "Well, sir, they're buying our product and you're not." We had just been on ABC World News Tonight with Peter Jennings. We had a 2 minute and 20-minute, a 20-second segment. And
Wow.
we talked about Walmart and McDonald's testing our products. And so he called me and he said, "I want it in our stores." And I said, "Sir, we can do that." He gave me a 4,200 store order over the phone. We were not a vendor of record. And there were no computers yet. We had to hand type 4,200 invoices and ship. I mean, again, we got the opening, but making that happen, I called Boulder Temp Services. We hired all their typists to come out and set up banquet tables of people just typing invoices. And the work involved in turning that opportunity of good luck into reality is a daunting one sometimes. You have to be willing to go the extra mile. And I literally would work 70, 80 hours and sleep for two and go back at it because there was too much happening. And I didn't want to say no because I knew if I did,
Mhm.
Crayola would take over my market space in a heartbeat because they now knew about our company, which was called Our Kids. So being ready is awesome, but you cannot ever prepare for
Mm.
a 4,200 store drop shipped order. It
Yeah.
just, nobody has that staff of people waiting for it to happen. So when it does, you've got to be able to pull in your resources
Mhm.
and make some magic happen.
Yeah. So there's definitely a couple more questions I want to ask to go deeper on this. As you were doing all of this, it sounds like it's all coming together. The doors are opening, but I'm sure there were setbacks that you had along the way. So, what were maybe some of the setbacks and how did you face them to go forward?
Do you know, I say this very humbly, we had very few. Our kids' sidewalk chalk went on a rocket ride right into the stratosphere. Our biggest issue was always cash flow because, Kmart, Target, Toys R Us, they all pay 2% net never. And so I was always trying to fund my purchase orders. And that's when I had a banker in Boulder, Colorado, and I won't say his name. I went in to meet with him. I had purchase orders from three of our country's largest accounts. And I said, I need help funding these. And he said, I think you better go back to Niwot and be a housewife. You've got pie crust dreams. I was actually told that, Clara. And he had a big columbine in the stained glass of his door to his office because columbine is the Colorado state flower. And so I carefully packed my bag up. I walked to his door and I was fuming furious because he does not know how hard I worked to get those three, to get to the point where these accounts would trust me to be a vendor. I took the doorknob in my hand and I turned around and I looked at him and I said, Pete, you watch me make this happen. And I slammed that door shut, and that columbine it just quivered. I was
Mhm.
afraid I was going to break it, but I was so angry. So I got in my car, and from Boulder to Niwot is about 7 or 8 miles. I cried the whole way back to my office because I just was frustrated and
Mhm.
I didn't know where I was going to get the money to produce these orders. But I ended up going to good old Walmart once again and telling Sam, I need you guys to start paying me COD. Walmart doesn't pay vendors COD. And I told him exactly why. I said, we're growing and I can't be bankers for you guys. And so he said, I can give you net 7. Will that work? And I said, yes, it will, sir. And that was at least enough that I could get the
Mhm.
next. So the biggest thing for me was cash flow because our business was growing so fast.
Yeah,
And back in those days, bankers didn't think a mom with 2 kids and was
sure.
going to I had a banker actually tell me, if the water gets too hot, you'll walk away. Little do they know I don't walk away. And
No.
my current company, Staywell Copper, has been the most difficult company I've ever launched. And I've had so many friends now that I'm retirement age say, why don't you just quit? There's no quit in me. I'm from Iowa. We don't quit.
Mhm. No quit. Yeah. And I do want to talk about stay well in just a minute, but I have one more question going back to when you were doing this. You mentioned, you were putting your all into it. You were working those long hours. You did have small children at this time.
Mhm.
So, how because there are a lot of people who are going to be watching this that are looking to launch their own business or get to the next level and there is going to be a cost to that.
Yes.
How did maintain it all? What kind of support did you get? How did you communicate with your spouse, with your kids, your community, so that you could make all this happen? Because it wasn't forever, but there is a time where you're going to have to put pedal to the metal if you want your dreams to happen.
Well, like you, young lady, I'm blessed with a lot of energy. I'm a grandmother and I feel 23 inside. I have good health, thankfully. But back then, I was like the ever ready rabbit. I could work long, long hours. But what I would do is I would get my kiddos at this point were 5 and 8, 6 and 9 in that range. They were 3 years apart. And I would get them off to school, go into my office. I would work. I would come home. I would go pick them up at school. And I had two manufacturing facilities at that point, one in Meade, Colorado, and one in Longmont. And I would pick my children up, bring them back to my office. And I had like they had school desks, they had their toys. And I was a toy maker. I had friends in the toy industry that used to send my kids fabulous toys, as I send all my friends as kids chalk. So they had a little play shop in my office. So we would work together until dinner time. We would all go home. They get their homework done because school was paramount
Mhm.
for me. We would go home. We would have dinner, put them to bed, and I would go back and work all night long. So I that was my routine, and I did pay a very big price. Um, I did grow a very successful company. And on February 9th, 1990, that's a very special day, I sold that company to the world's largest toy company. And sadly, the biggest failure of my life was my 24-year marriage ended. And I think, quite frankly, my husband and father of my children, I just didn't have enough time to be a wife. And that is something I do tell people. Somewhere, something has to give. And we have to be real clear about taking the ownership and responsibility of our part in that happening.
Right.
And I don't know how I would have done it differently because and I also I did in the summers. I had a gal, a Diane, who came and lived with us, and she was my au pair. And she we're still friends with her to this day. She's a phenomenal lady. But that was the biggest tragedy of our kids, was of the end of a family.
Well, I
But
appreciate you being honest about that and being real that, something is going to have to give and we have to be cautious of that and understand that sometimes again there's, a season where we have to push hard and maybe pull back, but bringing that to light. So thank you for sharing that.
thank you.
Yeah. I want to go into your latest company, Stay Well Copper, because also talking about setbacks. If I'm remembering correctly, you became ill and it was sort of on this path to wellness that you found the beauty of copper as a healing power. And that is because again, you started off by talking that you are an inventor and you find a need and you fix the need. So tell us a little bit about, this journey to creating this company.
Well, through my career, I have started and sold 5 companies. And I've traveled the world working with doing product invention for companies in Montreal, Canada, in Cambridge, England, in Germany, in China. I've worked a lot of products and I love creating products. It makes me so happy. And in the process of all this crazy travel, and when I get into, even today, when I get into this, it's almost like I'm in a outer, a different body. When I'm so focused, I have trouble sleeping if I'm trying to find a solution. Um, I've never been able to turn this off when I want to, but I also call that my God wink. When he's sending me the powers and the messages and the gifts, let them come. I can sleep when I'm dead. But anyway, I was traveling the world and I was not taking good care of myself. And I was drinking way too much diet soda because I don't drink coffee. So diet soda was my caffeine pick me up. And I became very deadly ill. I had a biopsy done of a skin, they thought it was a skin cancer, but it wasn't. But they did a biopsy on my lower spine and I ended up contracting a MRSA staph infection in the lowest part of my back. Now, MRSA is like a staph infection on steroids. It's
Mhm.
very deadly. Many, many hundreds of thousands of people die from it a year. And for 6 months, Clara, I didn't know if I was going to live or die. I had 6 surgeries. I had to learn to walk again, and I had final rites twice. But finally, through some amazing miracles, I survived. And when I got better and got my strength back, and fortunately, I can walk just fine, which I do have trouble with my left thigh muscle. It's kind of a residual problem, but I can walk and I can deal with it. But when I finally got better, I wanted to find a way that was all natural, chemical free way to kill germs because I didn't want anybody to suffer the way I had. And taking all that I was on intravenous vancomycin for 6 months. That is the granddaddy of antibiotics, and it ruined my hair, my skin, and my nails. So when I finally got put back together again, I wanted to find a way to stay healthy without drugs and chemicals. So I spent 2 years researching and then probably about another 9 to 10 months creating products. And I found my answer was medical grade antimicrobial copper. So I created products that go on the germy things we touch all the time. Now, how many hours a day do we all touch our cell phones? These are the germiest things in our lives. So, one of our products is a copper phone patch that goes on the back of our phone because while you're talking, texting, and touching, This is killing 99.9% of the germs on your hands. We carry 80% of our germs on our hands. So by keeping our hands clean, we're way ahead of the game. So we have our foam patches. And here's the neat thing. While we touch it, it kills 99.9%, but copper is the only metal that has a halo effect, which means it kills 70% of germs within a 16-inch radius. So I put it on the things we touch all the time, like our phones. I wear one, this roller around my neck all the time. I never leave home without it. When I go to an elevator or a keypad at the grocery store or gas station, this is my sixth finger. I don't touch those germy things, even today, because they never get cleaned properly. The other thing is, we catch a lot of our germs up our nose. So every morning and night, like a Q-tip. I know. This is how I got on Jimmy Kimmel Live, sticking my copper up my nose. But it goes on keychains. It goes on this copper uh, beaded ball chain. So just practical, ordinary things that we touch all the time that we shouldn't have to think about being germy. And I launched product in March of 2018. Now, I had never bought much on Amazon. I'd never sold on Amazon, but I thought, because most people don't know that copper kills germs, I thought, well, I'll launch this on Amazon. And what a learning. It started off another rocket ship ride until COVID hit. And when COVID hit in March of 2020, our world ended immediately. Amazon kicked off all vendors that had anything to do with germs or any kind of microbial mutation, and we got kicked off. And we were we were selling about $140,000 a month. So we were really doing well. Instantly stopped. Boy, is that a come to Jesus moment. And because Amazon was growing so quickly, I never secured other distribution channels. They were the only place we were selling. So I quickly started focusing on how to regain Amazon, but more importantly, how to keep my company alive. So we started doing work for other companies. We do a lot of custom engraving on our copper patches I've got one right here, actually. This is one we did for Lowe's. We put their logo on copper. They use them as ad special. What a great place to advertise on the back of your phone, because people see
Right.
the ad
All the time.
constantly.
Mhm.
So I had to regroup, but it's been very, very tough. Finally, after March of 2020 until a month ago. That's been 3.5 years. We are back on Amazon, but they will never again be our primary vendor.
Mhm.
We are made in the USA. So I'm on a lot of made in USA sites as well, but we still are e-commerce. So that's been, for this old techno dinosaur, learning e-commerce has been a huge challenge for me, because
Yeah.
it is not uh, intuitive for me. I can
Right.
create products, but figure out
But
how to
again,
make.
we have to evolve and have to work with that. So, there is a lot of people out there who are probably watching this who are, wanting to do something, whether they want to invent something or start their own business. What would you say are some of the best lessons that you have learned that you can impart on those who are watching?
Know your numbers. If
Mhm.
you don't know your numbers and your margins, you're going to be in big trouble. Amazon is a greedy beast, and you've got to have enough margin so that because they take a lot. You've got
Mhm.
to be able to have enough margin to pay them and to keep your inventory coming in and your manufacturing labor. So know your numbers is important. I think you can't know it all, particularly in the world as fast as it's changing today. I would say meet people like Clara and her group, where you can put together masterminds that can help with social media, AI, e commerce, all these things that we have to know to do business today, packaging people. I have been using Chat GPT, which, for me being an old dinosaur, I use it to get ideations going, and it's been fabulous. And that's been fairly easy for me to use. I just put our product in TikTok shop. Well, I actually did it on August 18th. I couldn't get it activated to turn live. All the product was listed, it was fully optimized, and I was stuck. So I just found the right expert. And Clara, he's here in Phoenix. I'm
See?
thrilled. So he's
Mhm.
going to help get our TikTok shop up and going. So it's learning to know you can't know it all. And I had a real look in the mirror, come to Jesus meeting with myself about 2 months ago. I know what my strength is product development. The rest of this stuff, I've got to partner with people who
Mhm.
know it more intuitively than I do.
And I love that because, we started off with a conversation of right place, right time, but it's also right people helping to open the doors. And I
Yeah.
think if I could say one of the, challenges that a lot of us women have is we do have this mindset of I can do it all. We don't want to bother other people. We think maybe, it's a sign of weakness if we can't do it all. But understanding that, and you are really big on this. I started off the conversation. You opened doors for me. My first job that I secured outside of college was from an introduction that you made, who then made an introduction. So, talk to me a little bit about networking and how do you find the right networking groups and how do you learn to leverage those relationships to open the right doors and communicate without just showing up and saying, "Hey, I'm here. Buy
Help
from
me.
me." Yeah, exactly.
Well, do you know, Clara, you're going to understand this as much as anybody. The more you give, the more people will give back. And that is so innately true. And I have been doing this over 40 years. I have a lot of people that I help. Any of your audience that wants help with product, call me. I'm happy to help if I can. So the more you give, the more people are willing to help you back. Um,
Mhm,
as you know, we met back when I lived in Colorado, but 6 years
mhm,
ago, we relocated to Scottsdale, Arizona, almost 7 years ago next month. And I had to rebuild my entire business network. And Colorado is a very entrepreneurial community. So it was wonderful there to be part of such a vibrant scene. I moved to Scottsdale. This is old people who play golf, tennis, and pickleball. Not me. My fire still burns like I'm
mhm,
23. So I had to find new places to to learn where my peeps are. So
mhm,
I've joined a couple of different networking groups. Um, I will go a time or two or three, and I can pretty soon find out if they're right for me. Some of these groups, they're insurance salesmen and they're realtors and they're mortgage brokers, and that's great. They need those networks too. I don't need those services.
mhm,
I needed to go to places where people focused on product and retail and e-commerce because that's where my group
mhm,
is. So I have just been picking my way through. And then about 2 years ago, I started our own mastermind group, and we meet once a month on Thursday on Zoom, and it's all manufacturers. And it's been phenomenal. The people I've met, how we can help each other solve our problems, what one of us doesn't know, the other one does, and just the little tips and tricks and techniques that we all use to make our day more productive. And I laugh because here I started business back when there weren't even computers yet. And
mhm,
now, one of the things we worked on last month, or one of our topics that came up, was oh, these emails we get that people wanting to sell us all
mhm.
these e-services. And the one guy had such a great response. He just said, he sends them an email. Have you bought my product yet? Do you know why you're even promoting me? I just laughed and I said, Evan, only you would be gutsy enough to say,
Mhm.
if you haven't bought my product, don't try to sell me yours. But
Yeah.
um, so I just, by trial and error, and
Mhm.
our groups are all still evolving. There's one that meets every Thursday, and I probably attend maybe once a quarter. I want to keep my presence there. The output that I've got back from it is very nominal,
Mhm.
but I have I've enjoyed it because it just gets me thinking about new things. And actually, it was at one of these masterminds that I went to via Zoom where I learned how necessary a TikTok shop is. That
Mhm.
it is the one entity that Amazon is most afraid of right now is TikTok as taking away some of their business. So that prompted me then to get busy and get stay well listed into a shop. So I am still evolving and
Mhm.
I
Gotta
value and
continue.
cherish people I've met here in Arizona because they've been very helpful.
Good. I love hearing that. So yeah, finding that networking group that I think again, looking at what is it that you need to learn so that know your value so that you can give, but then also can I learn from them rather
Right.
than just finding one to quote unquote sell at. I want to ask another question before we start to close things out. When you were getting started, you had mentioned with, the store and you were calling them, every Monday morning or whatever at 9 a.m. you would
Every
call
day.
them. Every day at 9 a.m. you would call them. In this day and age, it's harder to get face to face with people. We are getting bombarded with multiple emails and streams. So, if you had to go back in time and do it again, what advice would you give to someone if they're getting that door slammed in their face or they're not getting their foot in the door? What are some ways that maybe you would encourage people to approach it now?
Well, diligence is still important. And yes, I called every weekday morning for 46 mornings. I wasn't going to give up. And it just kind of became a test of wills. Are they
Mhm,
going to let me in or am I going to call again tomorrow? I wasn't
mhm,
going to quit. So since then, I have learned some clever things that I do. I love to bake. And when I want to get into a meeting that I've struggled to get into, I will oftentimes deliver to the office or send via Federal Express homemade cookies. That's kind of become
mm,
my and usually, again, I've given something to somebody, they love my cookies, they're not gonna take my call. So I've found that when I get a way to scratch the needle, I scratch the record, I make them stop and think a minute. First of all, how many people get something FedEx? Now we get zillions of emails, but how
mhm.
many FedEx packages have you gotten today, Clara?
Yeah, 0.
How many have you gotten this week?
I think it's been about maybe 3 weeks since I've received anything.
If you got a FedEx package right now, would it stop you and you'd open it and say, wow?
Absolutely.
So
Mhm,
find something that speaks to you. And they all know I'm an Iowa farm girl and chalk was started in my kitchen and I love to bake. And my ex-husband used to say I was trying to make muffins and came up with sidewalk chalk, which that's kind of
mhm.
our funny line. But find a way to get someone's attention. And Clara, you did it beautifully. I got a card from you and it's right over here. Hang on a second. On
I
my
do love my note cards. I love my handwritten notes.
Look at
Mhm,
this. I thank
mhm.
you for your part in my journey. I kept this because you know what? We all have people to thank for their parts in our journey. And when I got this from you, Clara, it just struck me that Clara's got it down right. You sent this snail mail. You didn't email me a thank you. Snail mail is right up there with getting a FedEx package. It stops you and you say, wow, this lady's got her shit together.
Yeah, I love
So
that.
I
That's
would
great.
find a way that people have to listen to you. You strike enough of interest and curiosity that they want to know more.
Yeah. And I think it also humanizes you. And again, you're now not just an email, you're a real person. So I love that idea of, and I see this a lot now where people are, instead of doing a gift after the relationship or after it closes, preempting it. Saying, you know what, I know we're gonna find a way to work together. I just wanted to give you a token of gratitude. And that does help. So I think that's fantastic.
Well,
So
and Clara, I think when the pandemic hit, we all had to meet remotely. And
mhm,
I think I built relationships remotely. I've never met people, but then when I do meet them in person, that takes a relationship to a whole new level.
yes.
No matter how well you know someone, until you have coffee or break bread, you really that's what starts to seal the fact you can take the next steps.
Yeah, I love that. That's fantastic. So, you mentioned that your fire's still going. You're not someone that's just going to go and, lock it up and
Pickleball.
say, I'm done. Yeah. So, talk to us. What's next for your Marcia?
Well, Staywell Copper is my passion, and it will continue to be my passion. Uh, and Clara knows this, maybe some of the rest of you don't. 16 years ago, a wonderful man came into my life, and we have been married for 13 years. And he is a very late sleeper. He's not even up yet, and it's 11:30, and I wake up ready to go like Clara does at 4,
Yeah.
4:30 in the morning. So I get up, and from what time I get up until noon is my time. Once, um, his name is Teddy Bear, Ted. Once Teddy Bear comes out of hibernation, all afternoon and evening is his time. I don't want to repeat the mistake I made with my first company, which was just working around the clock. So
Mhm.
I pretty much, unless it's an emergency, which Ted was in business his entire life as well. So he understands. He had his own company. Um, Unless it's a real emergency, I don't interrupt our playtime. So I think what's next is to get Stay Well to the point where it can be acquired. And then there will be something new. I have about 7 or 8 products in the product development folder that need to come to market that have a real purpose for being. And, uh, I don't just invent products that well, I was in a competition about 3 weeks ago for product of the week, and I worked really hard to try and get my peeps to vote. And at one point, I found out the product that had gotten more votes than ours was a plastic egg peeler. And I went nuts. Like, I don't even really like hard boiled eggs. So I would never really buy a plastic egg peeler because I can peel my eggs myself. And I wrote to this friend of mine, I found this GIF on my computer of Judge Judy going, egg peeling, enough already. And I sent this to my people and said, guys, come on, get on the bandwagon. We can't be beaten by an egg peeler. But so my products that I bring to market really do have, I believe, like Sidewalk Chalk, help kids with creativity, and Stay Well Copper helps us and kids stay free from germs. There are more products coming, but I don't know when. Stay Well is my full-time focus for now, and I love it.
That's fantastic. I love what you're doing. And, again, you have just been such a gift to me, to my family. I've learned so much from you. I actually probably need to sit down and pick your brain more because you are just a wealth of knowledge. So I want to ask you, as we get ready to close, sitting here where you are today, how do you define success for yourself now?
One way, health. Your health is your wealth, for without your health, you have no wealth at all. So, having good health is how I define wealth. And I know we just talked in the green room about some of members of our families that are close to us who are losing health and how hard that is to see that happening. We have a wonderful mutual friend going through cancer treatment right now. And, you know, it's all to me about health. And then, as kind of a secondary measure of success for me, is what I told you. I get to do it on my terms, my way. I get to work in the morning. I get to play with Teddy Bear in the afternoon and evening. That's as good as life gets. I mean, I've traveled the world. I don't need to go. I'm kind of done with all that stuff. I'm done with stuff. It's now about people, experiences, health, happiness, friends, family, faith, food, and fun.
Ah, I love that. Yes, so fantastic. Well, Marcia, thank you so much for being a guest on Women Winning Their Way. Again, I admire you, I honor you, I learn so much from you, and I really just appreciate everything that you are doing to lay a foundation for not just women, but all people to know that, with determination, with belief, and with tenacity, we truly can make our dreams come true. And I love that all the things you're doing are more holistic in making the world and our lives better. So, Marcia, thank you so much.
Clara, thank you so much for having me. I hope you had a fabulous birthday last week. And
Yeah,
thank you very much. I love our time together, and I'm so glad that we get to spend more of it now that you also are
I
in
know.
Arizona.
It
So,
is. It's wonderful.
everyone, stay happy, stay healthy, and God bless.
Yes. So thank you all for watching. Again, follow Marcia, go to staywellcopper.com, buy some of those amazing tips and tools to keep you and your family healthy because health is our wealth in everything we do. Yep, you can go and stick it up your nose and keep yourself healthy. So don't forget to like, share, follow the show, give us a 5-star rating, and always, always make sure that you're creating that path to success all on your terms. Thanks for watching. I'm your host, Clara Capano. Wow, what a powerful, powerful talk we had there. And I took away so many notes, from this. And I really just wanted to hit on a few items, for some moments of clarity for you to take with you. One of the things I love that Marcia talked about is this idea of not giving up. When you're out there forging forward on your own path to success, it's not always going to be smooth. People are going to say no. Other people are going to tell you that you're crazy. You've got to believe in yourself. And when you truly believe that you are bringing something valuable, you cannot give up. Yes, you're going to have hard days, but again, making sure that you're bringing it all together. So, again, don't give up. You may have to pivot, but don't give up. The other thing is that reinvention of ourselves. She had mentioned this over time in her careers, starting her career path in the 70s, the 80s, and even now with technology. You're going to have to reinvent yourself. You're going to have to re energize yourself and you're going to have to reset certain things. So, again, tying this together with that concept of not giving up, but knowing that regrouping is part of the process. The other thing that she talked about is again asking for help and surrounding yourself with people who can help you. Seek out those relationships and build true relationships. Don't just ask for the help, make sure you're giving back to them too, because the more that you give, the more that you get back in return. So, constantly showing up and seeing how you can serve others because others will want to give back and serve back with you. And then also in everything that you're doing, making sure that you are serving a need. Do your research. What is it? Think about your target audience. What are they struggling with most? What are you struggling with most? Because if you can be a solution to other people's greatest need, that's how you're truly going to deliver value. So, again, make sure you are showing up, you are not giving up, you are contributing back to the world as a whole, and you are living authentically in your path, knowing that what you are doing is going to make a difference. So, thanks for joining us for this episode of Women Winning Their Way. I'm your host, Clara Capano, and we'll see you next time. But until then, keep living your dreams your way and making sure that you are creating your path to success.